Hello guys, welcome to CS Tech Solution. Today's is Lon as a data analyst. Today's is Lon as a part 3 is missing the data. Missing data is one of the most common problems in the real world data set, and this the module is explained how to identify, understand, handle, and as a prevent as a missing the values as a without damaging qualities of a data set. At the first, what is the missing the data? A missing data is occurs then as a required or as a expected values in as a not as available in the data set. And the example as names, age, and the cities has to give, and as some record as age is not gives, and as cities is not gives, and as missing the data can as occurs in a spreadsheet and the database surveys applications and as others data sources. And a second is types of the missing the data as a missing data can be as a classified into different types. First is a missing as completely at randoms as a missing values is as no relationship with the data. Example, technical errors as randomly is case some the surveys is response to as disappear, and the second is missing at a random. Missingness is as related to the another's observed variables, and example as younger customers are as less likely to as provide this incomes information, and third is missing is not a random, and as a missingness is as related to the missing values itself. And for the example as peoples with as very high incomes may be as less likely to as report their incomes. And why the classifications is matters as understandings why the data is missing and help as determines as approximate as a method for as handling it. Third is blank value. A blank values is a empty cells or as a field this as a no values has been as entered, and this tables has to show like missing the age and the missing the emails is blank values are as a commons in as a spreadsheet and as a forms, and is in this case as a user has kept the field and the data was as a not connect, and the data entries was as incomplete, and the system errors informations was as unavailable, and the blank does not as always means as the same things or the zero. And for the example as a salaries equal the blank is a salaries is as unknown, and the salaries equal the zero, salary is as expectedly as zero. And fourth is a null values. A null is represent the absence of as values in the database. And the example as a customer's IDs, names, and the phone numbers has to give, but as a phone number one phone number is null values has to show. Null is does not as a necessarials means as a zero, empty text as a false, and unknown is every situation to use as a null, and it means that the values is not as present or as unavailable. And SQL's example as to find the null values, so as use the select star from as customers is the table names, and where as a phone, so the field names has to otherwise as a call field names is called as a colon names, and is as a null and the semicolon, so use as is nulls and is not equal the null. This queries to perform and find all the null phone numbers in the customer's record. And fifth is a missing data detection. As a missing the data detection means as a finding the missing values is exist, or as a determining how much the data is missing. And the method is check the blank cell, and as a search for the null values, and as a count the missing values, and as a calculate the missing values as percentage, and as a checked is required the field, and use the filter, use the SQL queries, and use the Python and the pandas. Any method has to use, and after as missing the data detections is performed to use. And examples as suppose the data set is concerned as as a thousands customers records, as 100 customers have no email address is missing percentage to find, as 100 is divided by thousands, and multiply the 100 equal as a 10%. So therefore as a 10% for the emails values are as a missing. And why the detect the missing data, it help or determines as which the colons have as problems, and how the serious of problems is, and whether a value should be as a remove, and whether the value should be as a replace, and whether as a missingness is need as a investigation. And 6 is a case of the missing the data, as a missing the data can as a occurs for many reasons. As a common case, as a user did not provide the information, as the information was as unavailable, as a data's connection failed, and forms filled was as optionals, and the data entries was as incomplete, and technical problems as occurs, and the database migrations case is missing the values, as different data set is constraints different fields, and surveys is participant escape the questions, and the data was as intentionally not as a record. And the example as a customer's registration forms as ask for names, emails, phones, and the address. Customers is provide the names and as emails, but as skip the phone, and phone numbers as becomes as missing the data. And the seventh is removing the missing the data. Sometime as missing the records or as values can be as removed. Method 1 is remove the row. If a record has too many missing the values, the entire rows, and may be as remove. And the example, if Rahul's record is constrained as almost no useful information, and it may be as remove. And example, and give the tables as a name, image, and as a name, age, and the email. So the Rahul data's age and the email is missing, and so as a Rahul's data's rows has to remove. And the method 2 is remove the colons, and if the colons has constraints extremely is high percentage of as a missing the values, and as a provide a little useful information, it may be as a remove. And important as do not as automatically delete every row, but as a constraints as a missing the values, as a removing to as much the data in can, as reduce the data set size, as introduce the BS, and remove the useful information, and is effect the analysis result. 8 is replacing the missing the values, as an instance of detecting the missing values, and they can as sometimes be as replaced with as appropriate values, and this is can as a imputation. And as a numerical data as a possible methods is a mean, median, mode as a previous values, as a next values, and as groups based values. And example, and the age is 20, 22, 24, and as a missing and the 26. So as a missing the edge is cloud as a potentials b as a replace using as a appropriate statistical methods. Other as a categorical data as a for as a categories is the mode, or as another appropriate categories may the sometimes be used, and the example as a male, females, and males, and some as a missing, and the last as males has to give, and the missing values might be as a replace with as a male if that as justified by as analyst. And time series data is possible the approach as include as a forward field and the backward field, and as a interpolation, and the correct methods is depend on the data and as its as purpose. Ninth is handling the missing data, and this is no single solutions for as every missing the values problems. Data analysts should as first as ask as how much the data is missing, and which the columns is constrain the missing values, and why is data is missing, is the missing values is important, and can the values be as obtained from as the another sources, should the record be as removed, should the values can be as replaced, and will the choosing the methods is introduced as bs. As a common approach, as option 1 is keep the missing values, then the missingness itself is a meaningful, and second option is remove the rows, and then as only the small numbers of the records are as affected, or as removals is as appropriate, and as option 3 is remove the columns, then columns has exercises is missing the data and the limited is usefulness, and option 4 is replace and input the values, then as missing the values can as responsibles be as estimated, and the option 5 is obtained the originals values, then as the another is realizable sources is the available. And the last is a missing data decision process. First is a detect, measure, as a understand the case, as a choice the method, clean, as validate, and the document. And the example as the gives originals as the customer's age and the salaries has to gives, but one customer's salaries is missing, and the process is a detect, first has to detect the salaries for customers base is the missing, as a measure determines how many salaries values are the missing, and after as a investigate as the find out why the salaries is the missing, and after as a choice as a remove, otherwise as a replace, otherwise as a retrieve the values as a depending on the situation, and after as a validate is a check the resulting salaries data, and last as a document is a record what was as done. Thank you guys to watch the videos. Please subscribe the channel on the notification and bell icon.